The IAS, considered India's steel frame, and hardly a day passes in the country without the Indian Administrative Service being in the news. This month has been no different. April 1st, Punjab transfers 11 IAS officers. April 7th, Haryana shifts 13 IAS officers. And April 8th, 31 IAS officers transferred in Andhra Pradesh. Transfers are routine with the objective of attaining better administrative efficiency. But the question is whether the IAS is living up to its billing as an elite service. That question was recently highlighted when a few officers who have been in the service discussed the efficacy of the IAS in contemporary India. But first, a little bit of statistics. The Lok Sabha was informed last month that there were 5,231 IAS officers in the country. A good 22% fewer than the sanctioned number of 6,746 IAS officers. Of the 5,231 officers, 3,787 are direct recruits and 1,444 promotees. In fact, the shortage of IAS officers is nothing new. In 1951, there was an identical 22% fewer IAS officers than the sanctioned number. Stats aside, the crux of the IAS is in its efficiency. After all, the IAS handles three key facets of the government's functioning, namely revenue collection, maintenance of law and order, and supervision of the policies of the central and state governments. Duvuri Subbarao, former Reserve Bank of India governor and a former IAS officer himself, asked the question in the Times of India recently, has the IAS failed the nation? And answered the question himself, yes, and it's not all the politicians' fault. Subbarao says that the perception of the IAS today is of an elitist, self-serving, status quo perpetuating set of bureaucrats who are out of touch with reality, who wallow in their privileges and social status, and have lost the courage of conviction to stand up for what's right. Subbarao is particularly critical of the norm in the IAS for everyone to get promoted by the efflux of time. He feels a system that promotes mediocrity and risk aversion rather than innovation and change sinks to a low common denominator, as indeed the IAS has. Subbarao's views have been rebutted by another IAS officer, Deepak Gupta, who is also the author of the book The Steel Frame, A History of the IAS. Gupta feels that every policy or implementation failure seems to be laid for some reason at the door of the IAS, and wonders whether all of India's problems will simply disappear if the IAS were to be abolished. Gupta writes in the Times of India, India's problems are many. Overall governance has to improve as challenges are only increasing. Blaming one service, and that too unfairly, will be a disservice. Ultimately, the system will breed its own quality. In other words, we get the bureaucracy we deserve. I spoke to C. Subramaniam, a former IPS officer and a former Kerala Director General of Police. This fortnight, C. Subramaniam has been in the news for another reason also. His son Raj Subramaniam being elevated as President CEO of global transportation, e-commerce and services giant FedEx. Subramaniam advised his son to join the IAS, but Raj Subramaniam politely refused, saying he thought that the future was in technology, not the IAS. C. Subramaniam feels that the IAS goes by seniority, not meritocracy.
Yeah, I was somehow of the opinion at that point of time in 1985 when he asked this, when this question was raised, that for him it would be ideal to join the Indian Administrative Service with its potential for rising within the bureaucracy to higher levels in course of time, because the IAS also believes in the system of not meritocracy but going by seniority. This is an eternal question in India itself, whether seniority is the right tradition to have or merit as the criterion for promotion. I personally believe that merit should be based on certain criteria, and that should be the basis for promotion for any service, whether IAS or IPS or any other. Otherwise, the standards will fall.
Raj believed that technology was the future and the IAS was a life of files. So India perhaps lost a competent IAS officer while FedEx found an able president CEO in him to lead an 850,000 strong team. Is it fair to put the blame of all failures at the door of the IAS? Abhay Shukla, another former IAS officer, doesn't think so. Writing in the Citizen.in, Shukla feels that if the IAS has failed, it is because the nation has failed. Shukla writes, in terms of character, values and ethics, India is no longer the nation it was in the 1950s, 60s or early 1970s. This is true not only of the polity, but also of its society in general. The average Indian has become completely transactional and self-centered, without morals or scruples. Abhay Shukla feels we can't expect our IAS officers to be transformed by a short induction training alone. He says, a 6-month vacation in Missouri is not going to change substantially the values and code of ethics they have picked up in their families and social circles. We elect our politicians, we select our IAS officers. Election through voting, selection through an examination. Either way, we can only get people who are like us, who share our ethos. We get the politicians we deserve. We are now getting the bureaucracy we deserve. This video salutes Alif Muhammad, a BCom student of the DB College at Sastamkota, Kerala, and his college mates. Alif Muhammad makes light of the absence of both his legs and relies on his mates for his commute. Here you see his college mates Arya and Archana carrying him. Look at the joy on those young faces. College life as it should be, or rather life itself at its loving, caring and sharing best.